वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपी को राधा कुंड श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपी गोपी गो श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय। संवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग की जय। शिला भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर की जय। शिला भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर आविर्भाव महोत्सव की जय। नमः श्रीमताय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते। नमस्ते सारस्वती गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। सासु तदा नतिनी चोचतार कहान जगदाच प्रेमरुत्कंठयोस्फुरा। Hare Krishna. So today is the great auspicious day of the appearance day of His Divine Grace, Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Srila Prabhupada. So the topic is Sri Siddhanta Saraswati, the nomenclature. That means we are going to discuss about the meaning of the name, why his name is so. Of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had many names and titles. We are not going to discuss all of them. Basically, we are going to discuss Sri Siddhanta Saraswati and why it in modern days we can't relate with this so much. Why? Because the names are not given according to our character. So, but in Vedic culture it was not like that. The names were given according to one's character. So there was a great science behind naming children. So all these names and titles, they have great significance connected with their personality and their character. But present day society, it's not like that. So this science is lost in India. Although sometimes they give some Vedic names, but so traditionally it used to be according to one's character. So astrologers, Jyotishis, they would make horoscope, and based on that their names were given, different names were given. So it seems that it was extant till recently. There may be some new now also, but very rare now. So this is all lost now. And this discussion on the name of Sri Saraswati Thakur would be in two parts. One on a mundane level, or we can say from external materialistic vision, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur or Sri Siddhanta Saraswati, and another is on a transcendental platform. From a spiritual significance or spiritual context, what is the significance of this name Sri Siddhanta Saraswati? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself wrote a book called Raya Ramananda on the life and character of Ramananda Raya. So, and in that there are two parts. One is Raya Ramananda as seen by mundane people, and another is his transcendental position. So similarly, today we are going to discuss this name of Sri Siddhanta Saraswati, its meaning in context with his personality and character from both the angles. So on mundane plane, if you see, this Siddhanta Saraswati name was a title given to him for his contribution in Jyotish, in the field of Jyotish, astronomy and astrology. Before going to that, we should remember that throughout his life he signed. He would always sign as Sri Siddhanta Saraswati. He would always sign as his name as Siddhanta Saraswati. Sometime after taking sannyas, Tridandi Bhikshu, Siddhanta Saraswati, like that. So he would sign it like that. So this Siddhanta Saraswati was given to him as a title because of his contribution in the field of Jyotish. So why? Because Jyotish Shastras are called as Siddhanta Shastras. There are two prominent Jyotish Shastras. There are many, of course, but two are very prominent. One is called Surya Siddhanta, another is Siddhanta Shiromani. Surya Siddhanta is very ancient text on I should use the word Jyotisha because there are two divisions actually, astronomy and astrology. Astrology is generally a predictive. It is also Jyotisha, but it's mostly connected with predictions about future, etc. But Jyotisha has that's very insignificant part of that Jyotisha. So Jyotisha also has astronomy in it, and scientifically understanding. Scientifically means not in an empirical way. It's not based on observations. It's Shastriya. It's based on Shastras, or it's a transcendental knowledge. Means it comes from a transcendental source, although it is not transcendental knowledge. We'll discuss that more in detail later. It comes from higher authorities, higher sources, and it is a descending knowledge because Jyotir Veda means Veda is also called as Nigama. So Nigama is a descending knowledge, descends from higher authorities. So Jyotish Shastra, Western astronomy, which basically started from Copernicus. Which is more based on observations. So later Galileo he made a first telescope to show people about all these astronomical observations. But Vedic Jyotisha is based on it's a descending knowledge. It's a Veda. It's a descending knowledge. It's a Upaveda. It's a descending knowledge coming from higher authorities. So particularly the Surya Siddhanta was given by Surya Deva to the Maya Danava, so demon Maya. So it's a millions of years old text coming down in parampara of Jyotishis. And another famous work is Siddhanta Shiromani, which is a very recent one, few thousands of years, maybe 1000-year-old. Bhaskaracharya so wrote that. So therefore the Jyotish Shastras are called as Siddhanta Shastras, and so he was given this title Siddhanta. And Saraswati, why? Because Saraswati is goddess of learning, and anyone who is very learned in any field, so it is believed that he has received the blessings of goddess Saraswati. So because Siddhanta, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was so learned in Jyotisha, so they gave him the title Siddhanta Saraswati. So he was given this title at the age of 15, just at the age of 15. And at the age of 17, he started translating these two works, Siddhanta Surya Siddhanta and Siddhanta Shiromani, into Bengali, and he gave commentaries on them. The Bengali commentaries, they are still available. So by the age of 21 he completed it. And he used to run many magazines, so in the field of Jyotish. So there were monthly journals called Brahaspati, which was in Bengali. So he had started these magazines at the age of 20, you can say 22 in 1896, because he appeared in 1874, and 1896 onwards he started these magazines. Brahaspati was one magazine which was in Bengali, and then there was another monthly magazine called Scientific India, which was in English. So Scientific India, that is the name of the magazine. Actually I had read this before, but I had completely forgotten. Recently somewhere again I was going through, so I was surprised that so he was so much interested in science, but this science is not of course modern empirical science. This is Jyotish Shastra, but this title itself, Scientific India, because I had this question before, whether apart from Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and any other his followers, did they ever contribute anything in refuting Western philosophy and science? So I had asked this to His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj also, this question. So this was one recently when I read this, it was little, I was very happy, or I was, so that to some level he did it. Scientific India, this magazine is there. I will discuss more on this point, that how he counteracted Western astronomy with Vedic astronomy. So we can just start this. There was one great Jyotishi in India in 19th century. His name was Vapudeva Shastri. He was a professor in Banaras Hindu University, head of the department of Sanskrit, Jyotisha, etc. And in 1860, he translated Surya Siddhanta in Bengali. He was commissioned by one Christian missionary to translate and make it Vedic Jyotisha compatible with Western astronomy. So in this way, Jyotisha was getting mixed with all Western ideas of astronomy. So, and gradually, because he was teaching in Banaras Hindu University, his followers became champions in Jyotish in India. So everyone accepted them as authority on. So he was unchallenged authority until Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself translated Surya Siddhanta and Siddhanta Shiromani and challenged Bapadeva and his followers. So, and challenged all these Western influences, Western ideas on Jyotisha. So, influences of Western ideas in Jyotisha. In fact, in 1902, that is considered as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's last engagement in Jyotish. Because in 1901 or 1900 he was initiated by Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj gave him an instruction at the time of initiation that keep aside everything and preach absolute truth. So he had left Jyotish by that time, everything, and he was focusing mostly preaching Krishna consciousness, pure bhakti. He was preaching Bhakti Siddhanta now. But previously he had a Chatushpati called Saraswati Chatushpati. Chatushpati means, you all know, it's a Vedic school. So teaching, so Vedic branches of knowledge. So Jyotisha is one of the Vedanga. So he had his own school to teach. He would teach to students. That was in Bhakti Bhavan in late 1800s. So in the last decade of 1800 or 19th century. So in Bhakti Bhavan is it's a name of the house of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Calcutta. So there he had started this Chatushpati, and he would teach his students. Although now by 1901 and 1900 he had left everything, all these things. One more thing I forgot. He would also run one Bhakti Bhavana Panjika. Panjika means, you all understand, Panchang, we say, no? Almanac. So, anyway, here in Bhakti Bhavan, he had left, but his students whom he had taught and was teaching, they didn't want to spare him. They wanted him to just like we see, there are many parallels like that in if you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Saraswati Thakur, which is very common among because he is a devotee of Lord Chaitanya. In fact, in his Pranam mantra we see Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayate. So he was, right, no? Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayate. Or it is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Yeah, Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayate. He was a Gaura Shakti Swarupa. You can see many parallels in his life and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also teaching Vyakarna, Kalapa grammar he used to teach, and it is one of the Vedanga. And Jyotisha is also another Veda, another Vedanga. So Saraswati Thakur would teach Jyotisha. So just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's students, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started preaching Sankirtan, spreading Sankirtan movement, he didn't want to continue as a teacher of Vyakarna. So, and initially he started teaching all Vyakarna into Krishna's names. Because of that, Harinama Amrita Vyakarna manifested later to commemorate that pastime. But then as gradually when his pastime of bhakti so intensified, or his ecstasies in bhakti did not allow him to continue as a Vyakarna teacher. So he told his students, okay, now we'll close the books, you can go to some other teacher and learn from them Vyakarna, I cannot teach you. Then the students also said that, okay, if you are not going to teach us, we are also not going to continue our studies. So they also closed the books, and they started taking part in Sankirtan movement. So here also similarly, they didn't want him to leave them and stop his teaching Jyotisha. But anyway, he was determined. So in 1902, somehow or other, they requested him to come and debate in that Royal Ascetic Society was there in Kolkata. So there, by this time Bapudev Shastri had become very old. One of his prominent follower was there. So with him there was a debate, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur agreed to debate with him. And so it was in presence of the chairman of that Royal Ascetic Society. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur where is that? So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he debated with him. So chairman of that Royal Society President of Royal Society. I don't now remember whether this is same Royal Ascetic Society, because Royal Ascetic Society was started by this Western Indologists like William Jones, etc. William Jones was the founder of that. So anyway, so his president was Rai Bahadur Rajendra Shastri, and Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur defeated this follower of Sri Bapudev Shastri in such a way that he passed stool and urine on the stage only. And and after that, no one would dare to debate with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on Jyotisha. And out of fear of humiliation. And after this incident, Calcutta University Chancellor, his name was Ashutosh Mukhopadhyay. So he gave him an offer. He can become a chairman of Jyotish department in Calcutta University. Of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't accept it, but that was the biggest. It is considered very honorific, very a great honor to become a chair of that astronomy department there in Calcutta University, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how old he is practically. So at that time, generally these positions are given to very elderly, experienced, very learned members of the faculty. So he was just 1902 means you can see 28-year-old. It was a great honor for him, which he didn't accept because he had some other. So this marks this one point, that how he was counteracting Western dogmas or Western astronomical ideas. So because Bapudev Shastri was already sold out to Westerners. So in this way we see that Saraswati Thakur, his contribution to Jyotish, field of Jyotish was very significant. And also he updated this astronomical formulas. Why? Because time to time, I think there is some in Jyotish, I don't have much knowledge about Jyotish definitely. So it has to be updated. I mean to say, every 70 years there will be some changes in the movements of all these stars, planets, etc. So that was his one of the contributions. So anyway, it is those who know Jyotish, they can relish this more better than us. That's what I can say. His contribution. We don't have knowledge of this. So in this way, this is what makes the name Siddhanta Saraswati significant in terms of external vision or on a mundane plane. So actually another place I had read that he started this almanac on the request of Jagannath Das Babaji. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj had told him to start. So that is one more thing. So in a young age like this, he was given the title at the age of 15, Siddhanta Saraswati. He started translating Surya Siddhanta Siddhanta ceremony at the age of 17 and completed at the age of 21. And by the age of 22, he started many magazines, like we saw Brahaspati, Scientific India, then this almanac called, what was that? What is the name of that almanac I said? Don't remember. Bhakti Bhavana Panjika, and also that Saraswati Chatushpati. So in this way he did a great contribution in that field. So therefore his name Siddhanta Saraswati is significant from external vision. Later after his initiation, Bhakti Vinod Thakur himself added Bhakti before Siddhanta Saraswati word. So then he became Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Now we come to the point of understanding this name Siddhanta Saraswati in a transcendental way, like I had told. So comparing with Raya Ramananda, book written by Saraswati Thakur himself. So he has written that in two sections. One is from how mundaners saw Raya Ramananda as a Kayastha, as a governor of Madras province, etc. So similarly we discussed Siddhanta Saraswati from an external mundane perspective from Jyotish Shastra. Then now after adding to Bhakti word, so immediately, so the name is now, we have to understand that in terms of his contribution in the transcendental field of Bhakti Siddhanta. So I did not discuss the word Siddhanta. Siddhanta word is used for the final conclusion, which is what we say, after analyzing all the Shastras, either in a particular department or overall complete, so or a particular branch of the Vedas, the whatever conclusion comes, that is called as Siddhanta. And that Siddhanta is something which cannot be, it is unrefutable. It is. So therefore it is called as Siddhanta. We have Dvaita Siddhanta, Advaita Siddhanta. Of course they claim to be unrefutable, but these are also refutable. Of course Dvaita is Vaishnava Siddhanta, so we accept it. So like they say, whatever, this Advaita Siddhanta, Dvaita Siddhanta, Vishishta Advaita Siddhanta. So similarly in the field of Jyotisha, Siddhanta means, so they are final conclusions. Therefore the name Surya Siddhanta and Siddhanta Shiromani, they are not just books based on some empirical observation, some ideas, some notions, some theories, So they are Shastriya conclusions. So now Bhakti Siddhanta means what? So ultimately Siddhanta, conclusion of all the Vedic knowledge, all the Shastra is Bhakti. So generally Vedanta is considered as a sense conclusion of Veda and Anta. So Vedanta. So Vedantists, they establish their doctrines, Vedanta doctrines, by refuting all other Vedic followers. So therefore they use the word Siddhanta to their doctrines. So you are getting point. I said that Vedantists, they refute all other branches of the Vedas, means all other philosophies, Vedic philosophers are Vedic followers. Like there are Mimamsakas, there are Nyayiks, there are Sankets, then there are Patanjalis. So those who are Vedantists, they are supposed to refute them and establish their Siddhanta. So in this way, Vedanta and Siddhanta are basically, because Vedanta refutes all other 5 other philosophies, it is equated with Siddhanta. And again within Vedanta there are different conclusions are there. There is Advaita conclusion, then there is Dvaita, there is Vishishta Advaita. So, but even beyond all this, so supreme among them is Bhakti Siddhanta. Bhakti is the conclusion. So this word Bhakti Siddhanta is also very prominent in Madhva Sampradaya. So because their conclusion is also Bhakti, and of course Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita Advaita and Shuddha Advaita. So all these Vaishnava Sampradayas, they have their conclusion as Bhakti Siddhanta. So but particularly in Madhva Sampradaya, it is very prominent. And among the Gaudiyas, so this conclusion was established by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Therefore he wrote Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Rupanuga Viruddhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharini. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his Pranam Mantra, it is included that any Apasiddhanta which is contrary to Rupa Goswami's conclusion, Rupa Goswami's Siddhanta. So he vehemently attacked that and he defeated that. So therefore he is called as Rupanuga Viruddhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharini. And Bhakti Siddhanta term comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita also. in many places. So like in especially there it comes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had that system. You all must be wrong. I will not discuss that in detail because today it's not Chaitanya Charitamrita class. We are discussing about basically Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, particularly this word Bhakti Siddhanta. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a system that before anyone comes and presents their writings, their compositions in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have to pass through Swarup Damodar Goswami. If Swarup Damodar Goswami endorses that, then only it can be presented in front of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That means, apart from Rupa Goswami was the one who knew the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Swarup Damodar Goswami was also another personality who knew Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart. He knew the conclusions, final teachings, siddhantas which are taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So apparently there were many other associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who did not even know this siddhanta conclusion. It seems that they were not so pure as definitely as Swarup Damodar Goswami and Rupa Goswami. So it is possible that even among those who are associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one may not know the conclusions properly. So because that devotee who brought, I forgot his name actually, Bhagavata Acharya somebody. So there was one Bengali Brahman who had composed some drama, who wanted to present in front of his composition in front of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not interested. So his system was that they should go first and present in front of Swarup Damodar Goswami. So again and again this Brahmin was insisting, and there was one personal associate, one of the close associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who brought this Brahmin in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to present. But anyway, he was sent to Swarup Damodar, and when Swarup Damodar Goswami heard it, he strongly smashed it, rejected it, because it had contaminations of Mayavad. So Jagannath is wooden form, but the main Chaitanya of Jagannath is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All kinds of some Mayavad contaminations were there. Then so Swarup Damodar very heavily, strongly criticized it. There, this word Bhakti Siddhanta appears. There are actually two verses. One is Rasabasa hayadi Siddhanta viroda sahite na pare prabhu mane haya krodha. Rasabasa hayayadi. If there is no, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami very nicely defined all these rasa tattva, and he defined he defined some mixed rasas. Then he defined rasa bhasa, abhasa, reflections. They are not actually rasas but appear to be rasas. So rasabhasa. Actually mixed rasa is mishra or rasas. I don't remember the technical term for that. It seems that is acceptable, but not this rasabhas. Rasabhas is abhasa, means reflection, shadow. So shadow of the rasas. So he did not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not tolerate. Rasa basa yadi siddhanta viroda sahite na pare prabhu mane haya krodha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not tolerate, and he would become very angry on that. So this Rasabhasa. Then one meaning of Rasabhasa is shadow. Shadow means sometimes you may feel some kind of ecstasy. You may start crying, but actually you have not yet achieved the stage of bhava. You are not fully free from all the anarthas and all those things. Sahajiyas may make drama of such things. So those things means genuinely those symptoms may be visible, but they are not transcendental bhavas. They are just on mundane plane. Also you may get hairs, hair standing on an end, voice becoming choked up. So that can happen on mundane plane also. Therefore, so this Rasabhas is there, shadow. Before attaining bhava stage, which comes after long after clearing of one's anarthas, etc., one may exhibit some symptoms of bhava, ecstasy. So they are called as Rasabhas. Anyway, so Siddhanta Virodha, they are Siddhanta Virodha. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not tolerate them. Then, so there is one more verse in second Madhya Leela, 10th chapter, which comes Bhakti Siddhanta Viruddhara Rasabhas Shunite Nahaya Prabhu Rachite Ravullas. So Bhakti Siddhanta Viruddhara Rasabhas, that which is against the conclusion of Bhakti Siddhanta and which is Rasabhas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not become happy to hear such things. So here this word Bhakti Siddhanta comes. So basically pure Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti is the Bhakti Siddhanta. And that is the conclusion of all the Vedas, Vedic literatures. And particularly it is described in by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, based on basically Bhagavatam and other Vedic scriptures, Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipana. So here we see, so when I was talking about Vedanta, so here we see that Bhakti Siddhanta and Bhakti Vedanta are non-different. They are equal, what is that? They are synonyms. So Bhakti Vedanta, Veda means Anta, Vedanta means, Bhakti Vedanta, Vedanta means end, conclusion, conclusive knowledge, and Siddhanta also means conclusive knowledge. So therefore Bhakti Vedanta and Bhakti Siddhanta is non-different, and similarly Bhakti Vinod, one whose pleasure is only Bhakti. So that itself gives the essence of Bhakti Vedanta and Bhakti Siddhanta. So taking pleasure in Bhakti. So that is one thing. And we see practically in the life of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, whole life he was very strongly fought against this Mishra Bhakti, and Mishra Bhakti which is manifested by Sahajiya Sampradayas. So he was always preaching pure Bhakti, and that famous song is there. Not so famous, not many people sing that. We sang that some few times, right? Prakrita Rasa Shata Dhushani. So basically he is refuting 100 refutations of mundane rasa. So that which mundane rasa is opposed to Shuddha Bhakti rasa. So he is basically presenting Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti Siddhanta. So in this way we see Bhakti Siddhanta, the name, and Saraswati. What is the spiritual significance of the word Saraswati? We saw material significance. Actually, we didn't discuss much that because in Vedic culture or in traditional Indian culture, So anyone who is very learned, they were considered as received. They were considered as having received the mercy of Saraswati, who is a goddess of learning. So people would worship. Students, it was mandatory for all the students to worship Saraswati. You must, I don't know whether you all, at least in my school, in my childhood. So one day we would do Saraswati Puja. That comes in this Magha Mansa. Just it has recently passed. Saraswati Puja was. So we would do Saraswati Puja, and all the books, notebooks, they were all considered as expansion of Saraswati. We are not allowed to keep the book down like this, So traditionally, I am saying traditionally it was a system like that. So not that, oh, Bhagavatam, these are all spiritual books and therefore we have to keep them above. No, even material books were also not, it is not allowed to keep. Wherever we step our feet, it was not allowed. So because they were all considered, books were considered as expansion of. Now maybe because of this whole printing press, newspapers, magazines and sex literature, that that respect for books went away, I think. All this. And overall anyway, Vedic culture is not, it's in decline, it is under attack, it is downhill. So in this way, learning was basically was by the mercy of Saraswati Devi. She is considered as goddess of learning. But basically not learning means not any learning, it is Shastric learning. Shastric learning means Vedic learning. So present education is not even, Vedic learning means Aparavidya basically. Saraswati is a goddess, demigod. She is a demigod. She is a goddess of material education. Material education means it is not today's mundane education. So because now the knowledge is not according to Veda. So in other words, she was a presiding deity of Aparavidya. So here we come, this is a technical term which is described in Mundaka Upanishad. Mundaka Upanishad says that there are two kinds of vidyas. Ve vidya veditavya iti hasma yad brahma vido vadanti parachaiva paracha tatrapara rigveda yajurveda samavedo tarva veda shiksha kalpa vyakaranam niruktam chando jyotisham iti ataparayaya tad aksharam adhigamyate. It's very simple. Dve vidye veditavya iti. Know that there are two kinds of, dve means two, right? Vidyas. Hasma yad brahma vido vadanti. Parachaiva paracha. So there are para and apara, two kinds of vidyas. Tatrapara rigveda yajurveda samaveda atharva veda shiksha kalpa vyakaranam niruktam chanda jyotisham iti. So these 4 Vedas, Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samveda, Atharva Veda, then 6 Vedangas, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chanda, Jyotisha. These are called as Aparavidya or Paravidya? Apara. They are called as Apara. Apara means inferior, mundane, materialistic. Material education, not materialistic. Because this is all within dharma, we can't say it is materialistic. You may say material, but not materialistic. So, Ata parayaya yad aksharam adhigamyate. So, what is para? Transcendental, spiritual, adhya. So, same thing Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita. Adhyatma vidya vidyanam. Among all the vidyas, Adhyatma Vidya is, I am Adhyatma Vidya in 10th chapter, 32nd verse, something like that. So, in that purport, Prabhupada quotes from Padma Purana or Vishnu Purana, I think, yeah, Vishnu Purana, which describes 14 Vidyas actually. So, these here in Mundaka Upanishad, only 10 plus this Adhyatma Vidya is discussed. But in Vishnu Purana, more details are there. There are 14 Vidyas. Basically, Mimamsa, Dharma, Nyaya, 3 more, plus Adhyatma Vidya, total 14. Vedanta actually. So, Vedanta is called as Adhyatma Vidya. So, material Saraswati is a presiding deity of all other Vidyas except this. So, Paravidya. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, of course, in the beginning of his life, until his youthhood, when he was a young man, he was busy with Jyotisha, which is Apara Vidya, one of the 6 Vedangas. But later he became busy with Paravidya. So therefore this Saraswati later, the significance of that is transcendental significance, because he was preaching Shuddha Bhakti. Among Adhyatma Vidya, again highest is what? Bhakti, right? So Bhakti is highest among Adhyatma Vidya, among all the transcendentalists. So basically Jnanis, Yogis and Bhaktas, there are 3 transcendentalists. Prabhupada often used this word transcendentalists in connection with Yogis, Jnanis, Yogis and Bhaktas. So Bhakti is a transcendental science, highest transcendental science. So there that again Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram idam uttamam, Pratyaksha vagamam, Dharmyam susukum, Kartum abhyayam. That 9th chapter also Vidya comes, word Raja Vidya, king of knowledge, education. So therefore among Adhyatma Vidya highest is Bhakti. Because you see that chapter, Krishna says, I am going to discuss Raja Vidya. And how he ends that chapter? Manmana bhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskaro mamai vaishyasi yuktva atmanam matparayana. So become my devotee. That the bhakti is the transcendental knowledge, highest transcendental knowledge. So it is guhya tamam, idam guhya tamam. What is that? That verse 9.1 before Raja Vidya. Guhya tamam word comes there. Most confidential knowledge. So in this way we see, just drink some water. So this is his spiritual significance, that so he was busy basically with pure bhakti, Bhakti Siddhanta, therefore Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So he himself reveals that, and from this we can come to another point, that he is in the spiritual world also. There is Saraswati Devi, and so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself, he called this material Saraswati as Dushta Saraswati, because this Saraswati keeps, by giving mundane knowledge, material knowledge, she keeps the living entities in this world, material, bound to this material world. And that Shuddha Saraswati, by giving spiritual knowledge, especially knowledge of bhakti to Krishna. She reveals our relations, knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. So therefore she brings all the living entities towards Krishna. In fact, Gayatri Devi is expansion of that Saraswati. Gayatri is not different from that Saraswati. We see that Gayatri, by chanting Gayatri, we come to know our relationship with Krishna. So Shuddha Saraswati gives transcendental knowledge, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur whole life he dedicated for giving this very strongly and very aggressively with a great propaganda. So one of the like I was thinking about other Vaishnava Sampradayas, I think in recent history one advantage of Gaudiya Sampradaya is that so in recent history in their Sampradaya there is no such a prominent Acharya. Okay, there are some sannyasis and all, okay, they may do something, some preaching, continue their parampara and all these things. But there is difference between these great acharyas and just a normal guru. So not every guru can be a great acharya, So here we see that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was one of the greatest personality who appeared in this world. In this sampradaya, he carried forward, continued this sampradaya. So he preached this transcendental knowledge of bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti. Therefore, he is an expansion of Shuddha Saraswati. So that is the meaning of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So he is like in his pranam mantra we see. What is that? Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Nama. So that word Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Nama indicates this, that he is the expansion of Shuddha Saraswati, because Shuddha Saraswati gives that transcendental knowledge about our relationship with Krishna. Krishna Sambandha Vijnana. So Daine Prabhave Namaha. So in that way we understand that he is a Shuddha Saraswati. Saraswati Thakur himself indicated his identity as expansion of Shuddha Saraswati. I would like to read that quote. This quote is from, I would like to give the reference also. Srila Prabhupadera Bhaktravali. I think it is a collection of Saraswati Thakur's statements. In that he says, you see, on Gaura Shukla Panchami, the 5th day of the bright fortnight of Magha, Gaura Shukla Panchami, the 5th day of the bright fortnight of Magha, the day of Saraswati Puja, children perform worship for the sake of gaining materialistic knowledge, apara vidya. And we, members of Gaudiya Math, offer such worship through the hand of Vyasa to the goddess spiritual knowledge, Paravidya, on the 5th day of the dark fortnight of Magha, Krishna Shukla Panchami. That is on this day, the day of Saraswati. You know what is he saying? He is talking about, this is actually his Vyasa Puja lecture actually. In the Vyasa Puja lecture he says that. And we, the members of the Gaudiya Math is in the bracket, offer such worship through the hand of Vyasa to the goddess of spiritual knowledge, Paravidya. Goddess of spiritual knowledge. Who is that goddess of spiritual knowledge? That is Saraswati Devi. That is Shuddha Saraswati. On the 5th day of dark fortnight of Magha, Krishna Shukla Panchami. That means when we worship Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, today we are worshipping Shuddha Saraswati. So because he is expansion of Shuddha, he himself said that. So in this way he reveals his identity as a Shuddha Saraswati in the spiritual world. Of course he is Nayana Mani Manjari also. Nayana Mani Manjari means Nayana Mani. So in the eyes there is this black thing that is called as pupil or something, right, in English. And in the central there would be one central point would be there. We can observe that. So there it is understood that there is a money actually. So Nayana Mani Manjari is that gopi who is actually central part of Srimati Radharani's pupil actually, eyes. So you can imagine. So generally face is considered as beautiful, and within the face eyes are considered as very beautiful. And another way to understand is that he is personification of Nayana Mani Manjari is personification of Srimati Radharani glancing at Krishna. That glance. So he has his other form, Gopi form also, but he is also Shuddha Saraswati. And Shuddha Saraswati is actually Chit Shakti of the Lord. So we see, Sat Chit, and Chit means knowledge potency, right? So actually she is a Chit Shakti of the Lord. So knowledge potency. Sat Chit Ananda. So knowledge potency. That same knowledge potency only appears as Veda in the material world. And same knowledge potency only appears as Gayatri Mantra. So, and Saraswati Devi. So in this way, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati means he is a transcendental Saraswati who preaches Bhaktisiddhanta. Who gives knowledge of pure Bhakti Siddhanta. So that is the meaning, significance of his name Bhakti Siddhanta. Now these people who gave, if you see from this transcendental perspective, if his transcendentally in the spiritual world his name is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, if he is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, then it appears that this is name given, title given by some material people, people of this world. We are just, what we are doing is we are extrapolating that mundane title which was given to Saraswati Thakur into making it as divine, right? But it is not like that. So followers of Saraswati Thakur, and here in Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav it is one example is given. Just like Krishna's Sudarshan is eternal associate of Krishna. It's an eternal companion of Krishna. It's an eternal weapon of Krishna. It always, even in the spiritual world it is there, Sudarshan Chakra. But in the material world when Krishna appears to perform his leelas, it appears that he is acquiring it from Agni Deva. You all know that, from Mahabharata, that Agni wanted to devour this Kandava forest, and Arjuna and Krishna helped him. Agni was very, he was very hungry. He had indigestion. To sort out his indigestion, he had to eat. He had to devour something, because his eating means he is burning his eating actually. But because of eating so many offerings in sacrifices, because sacrifices, all these demigods are invited and offered sacrificial offerings. So after eating that which is cooked in ghee, so much ghee eating, his stomach had become, yes, he was suffering from indigestion. Anyway, you all know that story. Anyway, I don't have to tell that. Then he requested that I want to devour this Khandava forest. Then Vayu and Indra were obstructing. Then Arjuna and Krishna helped him. So, as a matter of gratitude, he gave different things to Arjuna and Krishna. And to Krishna he gave this Sudarshan Chakra. It appears that Krishna is acquiring this Sudarshan Chakra within the material world. Similarly, we may think that Siddhanta Saraswati is a title which he acquired in the material world because of his mundane learning, material education. But no. So these people are behaving, they are doing the same as what Agni did for Krishna. So they are taking the role of Agni. So those people who gave him this title. So in this way we should understand. I forgot to so he was very learned, and astrology that we were discussing about Siddhanta Shastras, his learning in Siddhanta Shastras. So he was so learned, and his knowledge of mathematics, especially because this Jyotisha has predictive nature, predictive aspect of that, but he also has also has mathematical aspect and scientific understanding of the universe, etc. So he was so learned in that everyone wanted to accept him as his disciple. So, but Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he did not give any importance to his mundane learning. Therefore, he told him that you should give up all this and focus on absolute truth. So, his own words, Saraswati Thakur, how he was learned, and Gaur Kishore Das Babaji did not give any importance to that. So, we will read some quotes in his own words. So Saraswati Thakur's own words. When out of false ego, I was thinking, I am a great scholar of mathematics and philosophy. Let any big Pandita come at any time, day or night, and I will cut his propositions to pieces. He himself is. I used to think like that, he says that. I was thinking when out of false ego, I am a great scholar of mathematics and philosophy. He was a great scholar of mathematics and philosophy. Now you see, like other day we were discussing about this. He is a very famous scientist, Sir Isaac Newton is. We were remembering him a few days back. And he wrote that book, Principia Mathematica, something. I don't remember the exact title. So that was in that book only. He basically told all his laws of motion and all these things. Actually, that book, Newton's contribution in the field of science, it's a completely change of it's a new era actually in the field of science. Why? Because mathematics became language of science actually. So similarly, Jyotish also uses mathematics. Not this mathematics what we study. This is nothing actually. So there is Ganita Shastra, which is basically coming from these Jyotish Shastras only. So Saraswati Thakur was a great mathematician. If you see his commentary And if you see his Surya Siddhanta translation and commentary, you will see the formulas and all these things. So many formulas. Every page there are so many calculations, mathematics. So he was I am a great scholar of mathematics and philosophy. Let any big Pandit come at any time, day or night, and I will cut his propositions to pieces. He was in that spirit actually. So intelligent, so great scholar. At that time I got the darshan of the lotus feet of Sri Gurudev. He ignored everything that was previously appreciated in me, my truthfulness, my moral and pious life. What is his truthfulness? He never told lie in his whole life. Most of the acharya, any Brahmana means Brahmanas used to be like that. They would not tell lie. My moral and pious life. What is his moral and pious? Whole life he was a Naishtika Brahmachari. Brahadvrata Brahmachari, Prabhupada did say that. My Guru Maharaj was a great Brahmachari. He used to sit straight, he would say. So he equated Brahmacharya with sitting straight, Prabhupada actually. And he would say, you see this picture? You can see that. My moral and pious life and my intellectualism, knowing them to be of little value. So he completely ignored Gaur. You can imagine how he was actually. Gaur Kishore. Sakshad Vairagya Murti. Who would not like to have a disciple like him actually, like Saraswati Thakur actually. When I saw that he ignored whatever was good in me, I realized how good he himself must be. Who could neglect so many good qualities in me? What inconceivable wealth he possessed. Being neglected by him, I understood that there was no one more fallen and contemptible than myself. That was my actual identity. The very things that I adjudged desiderata, such as scholarship and upright character, this exalted soul regarded as valueless. I apprehended that within himself this noble personality possessed priceless treasure. I then pondered that either he is extremely puffed up or he is exceedingly merciful. I then haughtily said to my Gurudev, you are a worshipper of that cheater and debauched Krishna. So why would you be compassionate to someone like me dedicated to ordinary morality? Humbly and sincerely I prayed to the Supreme Lord for His mercy. Later, by His grace, I recognized that without receiving the blessings of this peerless saint, without serving him, nothing good could happen to me. When I accepted that and acted accordingly, and then received the causeless unlimited grace of my Sri Gurudev and refused at his lotus feet, I deemed my life fulfilled. I had considered my Gurudev to be unequaled in Vairagya, but somewhat short of learning. Sometimes this kind of thoughts may come actually about our own spiritual masters and all. But he reduced to powder my audacity born of book learning. With the mallet of his mercy, he revealed that whatever I had adjudged to be the highest ideal was in fact most low and despicable. When by his grace that instruction first entered my ears, my diminutive brain lacked the capacity to accommodate such transcendental knowledge. But to all fools like me, he gave the chance to hear such lofty topics. So this is one quote. Then, I have understood that if the people of this world do not receive the same jolt that I received from my Gurudev, then their consciousness will not awaken. Therefore, I am telling everyone, I am more foolish than anyone else on earth. Please, all of you, do not be foolish like me. Do not live your life within the limitation of calculating consciousness. Discuss Vaikuntha Katha, and you will become a great person. I am telling you what I have realized to be supremely beneficial. Now this word Vaikuntha Katha came. I remembered one more thing. We were discussing that how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is a Shuddha Saraswati, spiritual Saraswati. Saraswati is a Devi, goddess of Vak Devi, she is called as. Sometimes her name is called Vani. Vani is another name of Saraswati Devi. So she is the goddess of speech. So one way we can understand how he is a Shuddha Saraswati, because he continuously spoke Krishna Katha, or Shuddha Bhakti Katha, spiritual Katha, Therefore he is Shuddha Saraswati. He is a Vani Devi, Vak Devi. That too spiritual, not material Vani. So you can see he would minimum his lectures would be 2 hours minimum. Generally in Gaudiya Math, when he would start speaking, generally around 7 o'clock he would start speaking in the morning, and he will end around 11 o'clock. Generally. But minimum would be 2 hours. Minimum 2 hours. If he starts lecture, means at least 2 hours it would be. So he continuously spoke Krishna Katha. So, like we see Prabhupada also. Morning he would dictate, early morning, in the night he would get up and dictate. In that way he is speaking Krishna Katha through his books by dictating. Then while after that devotees would attend, Prabhupada would not attend Mangalarti. So he said, for writing I am taking concession. So and then after devotees completed Mangalarti, he would go with devotees for morning walk. There he will speak. Morning walk conversations are recorded. Then he would come back, greet deities and take Guru Puja, and then he would give class. Then after giving class, he would take little breakfast. Then he would dictate letters. Through the letters he has spoken so much Krishna Katha. Then sometime he would speak while taking massage. Then he would take his lunch and little nap in the afternoon, some 45 minutes. Then again evening darshans would be there. That time he would speak. Then evening lecture. So like that throughout the day and night they would be just speaking. Similarly, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also, that in Dhaka in 1930 or 32, it should be 30 I think, I don't remember exactly, but we can find it out. So for 30 days continuously, every day, 2 hours he spoke on that first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. For 30 days on one verse, 2 hours, that means 60 hours he spoke. So therefore he is a transcendental Vak Shakti, Vani Devi. There are some more like that actually, in connection with Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. My Gurudev mercifully told me, reject your knowledge, purity and aristocracy and come close to me. Don't go anywhere else. Whatever you require, as many rooms, houses, palaces and mansions, as much scholarship, skill, self-control and renunciation you will get. Simply come close to me. Let there be a house. Let there be an entrance. Let there be learning. Do not be enamored by this type of thinking. Do not consider as necessities that which ordinary people accept as such. Oh, this is nice, you see. I was a fearsome debater. But with great kindness my Gurudev kicked out my pride in debating. Even in unlimited millions of lifetimes, I will not be able to find the limit of His compassion, nor will anyone else be able to do so. Although I am unfit, He recognized me as His servant, thus fulfilling my cherished desire by which I live forever. So he was a debater, he was an orator, he was a great scholar, he was a great mathematician, philosopher. These are all his external manifestations of his identity as Saraswati Devi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Hare. So, any questions, comments on Sri Siddhanta Saraswati? The name Sri Siddhanta Saraswati.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
प्रभु जी जिज्ञासा थी.
बोलिए. बोलिए.
प्रभु जी मतलब जब भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर जी के जो ये था उनके डिसाइपल 64 राउंड्स कंपल्सरी थे. हाँ. हरे कृष्णा.
जरूरी नहीं है. वो सबको पुश करते थे 64 माला कर 64 माला करने के लिए. लेकिन 4 माला भी कोई 4 माला भी करते थे. वो हरि नाम आश्रित करते कहते थे उनको. तो प्रभुपाद जी 16 माला करते थे. जीवन भर उन्होंने 16 माला ही किया प्रभुपाद जी ने. तो लेकिन सामान्यतः गृहस्थों को वो ज़्यादा 64 माला करने के लिए बोलते थे, क्योंकि गृहस्थ लोग वो अपने भौतिक कार्यों में लगे रहते हैं, संसार के कार्य में, परिवार को संभालने में. तो और जो प्रचारक होते थे उनको ज़्यादा वो लोग प्रचार करने में लगाते थे वो. लेकिन फिर भी उनके प्रचारक भक्तगण बहुत जप वगैरह करते थे, भजन करते थे बहुत. जप साधना उस समय लोग बहुत तपस्वी भी हुआ करते थे. जैसे आजकल इस्कॉन में हमारा 2 घंटा ये जपा टाइम रहता है, लेकिन उस समय वो जपा टाइम नहीं रहता था. वो दिन भर सेवा करके जप भी करना था दिन रात उनको जप करना. हाँ बोलिए.
जिज्ञासा थी क्योंकि मतलब हम लोग 16 माला करने में गृहस्थ लोग जो रहते हैं वो स्ट्रगल करते हैं 16 माला के लिए. और अगर उन्होंने मतलब 64 राउंड रखा था तो उसके लिए कम से कम 10 घंटा चाहिए था. तो उसमें गृहस्थ लोग अपना मतलब फैमिली का मतलब रोजी रोटी का कैसे चला लेते थे, वो मेरी जिज्ञासा थी.
या ये बड़ा समस्या हो गया आधुनिक जमाने में, रोटी कमाना, रोटी समस्या. तो मनुष्य समाज मतलब रोटी कपड़ा मकान के लिए, खाने पीने के, सोने के लिए कभी भी चिंता नहीं करना चाहिए. वो मनुष्य समाज है. ये पशु से भी गिर गए हम लोग, इसलिए ऐसा स्थिति आ गया है. जैसे प्रभुपाद जी उदाहरण देते थे ना, आप जो जंगल में जो हाथी होता है वो 200 केजी ग्रास खाता है ना हर रोज.
200 किलो खाता है.
उसके लिए कोई चिंता है क्या कहाँ पर घास मिलता है या है? वो जंगल में घूम के घास खाता है. लेकिन मनुष्य 2 केजी अन्न के लिए इतना संघर्ष करता है. तो इसका अर्थ है कि इसका अर्थ है कि हम लोगों ने ये पूरा समाज को बिगाड़ दिया है, अर्थव्यवस्था को बिगाड़ दिया, सामाजिक व्यवस्था को बिगाड़ दिया है. दिन भर हम लोग मेहनत करते रहते हैं. तो इसलिए शास्त्रों में सरल जीवन के बारे में बताया गया है. सरल जीवन मतलब बहुत समय बच जाता. तो उस जमाने में जब सरस्वती ठाकुर थे, जीवन बहुत सरल था. ये मोटर कार नहीं था, गाड़ी नहीं था, ये सब बैंक वगैरह नहीं थे. पैसा कमाने का, बैंक में जमा करने का, बैंक बैलेंस बनाने का, गाड़ी खरीदने का, फ़ोन खरीदने का, ये सब वो सब झंझट नहीं था उस समय. लोग बहुत शांत रहते थे, बहुत सरल रहते थे. 2-3 घंटा काम करते थे बस. सो दिन भर जप करना, 2 घंटा सुबह और शाम को ये गीता भागवत से, महाभारत रामायण से सुनते थे. आप जानते हो ना, भारत की संस्कृति वो रामायण और महाभारत को श्रवण करने की संस्कृति थी। हाँ, सुबह शाम बैठ के वो रामायण महाभारत सुनते थे। जब टेलीविज़न आया कोई खरीदा नहीं उसको, सब लोग बोलते थे ये बकवास का चीज़ है करके। लेकिन वो टेलीविज़न वाले महाभारत रामायण डाल के इनको खरीदने के लिए बाध्य किया। क्यों रामायण महाभारत? क्योंकि लोगों को वो सुन के महाभारत रामायण लोगों को पढ़ने के लिए भी नहीं आता था। उस समय में ज़्यादा बुक्स पढ़ते नहीं थे लोगों को अपना नाम लिखने के लिए भी नहीं आता था, लेकिन सुनते थे वो लोग सुबह शाम। तो ये भारतीय संस्कृति है। हाँ, लेकिन ये लोग बकवास नया डेवलपमेंट करके टेक्नोलॉजी, डिजिटलाइजेशन ऑफ इंडिया, स्मार्ट सिटी बोल के सब बकवास शुरू कर दिया है। ये सब नेहरू ने शुरू किया है 1947 में ही। भारत को इंडस्ट्रियल सभी वेस्टर्नाइज करने का उनका बड़ा प्रोग्राम था। प्रभुपाद जी ने एक लिखा है उनके शिष्य को एक पत्र में। वो क्योंकि वो शिष्य प्रभुपाद जी के पहले भारतीय शिष्य थे, उन्होंने लिखा कि आप जानते हो कि हमारे पहले प्रधानमंत्री का एक पॉलिसी था कि ये इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन, भारत को इंडस्ट्रियलाइज करना। इसलिए आप कृष्ण भक्ति को समझते हैं तो आपको क्या करना चाहिए, फिर से वो वैदिक संस्कृति, भारतीय संस्कृति को स्थापित कीजिए, ऐसे उन्होंने लिखा है अपने शिष्य को, गोपाल कृष्ण महाराज को। तो ऐसे हम लोग देखते हैं कि प्रभुपाद जी चाहते थे कि फिर से वो भारतीय संस्कृति जो ट्रेडिशनल वैदिक लाइफस्टाइल था उसको स्थापित करने की उनको इच्छा था। समझ में आ गया कैसे वो लोग इतना जपा करते थे और इतना श्रवण करते थे? ठीक है, इसलिए फार्म प्रोजेक्ट बनाना चाहिए। समझ में आएगा? ठीक है,
थैंक यू।
हरे कृष्ण। और कुछ एनीथिंग एल्स? श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर की जय। श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर आविर्भाव महोत्सव की जय। And today our great Delhi temple projects are running close.